How's it going? Shep here at Iron Anchor Cycles, and we are back with our Dyna project here on the lift. As you may have noticed, it looks like we've made a lot of progress since our last video, and actually we're shooting this intro after we shot the video. Unfortunately, the intro we did before we did all the work got erased. We had quite a few technical difficulties on this particular video. Hopefully we'll be able to fix that with editing in terms of some of the times when the battery died or we ran out of memory. But we did a lot of shooting on this one to make sure that we got all of the details covered so that you could follow along. So what you're about to see is us picking up where we left off, which was with our assembly doing the bottom end here with the cam chest. So stay tuned and we'll get started with rewinding a bit and going back to getting the motor to where you see it right now. Alright, so as you can see here, we've got our new pistons from T-Man, and these are Wiseco pistons that are specially made for T-Man according to their specs. And so what we've done here is gotten the rings installed onto the pistons. Now, when getting the kit from T-Man, the gaps come pre-set, so you're all set there. All you have to do is install the rings into the pistons, following the instructions in terms of orientation and position. So these are obviously really nice looking, and you know, we got everything all cleaned up and everything's installed, and we are ready to get these back onto the connecting rods and into the motor. Just a couple of things to point out. Pretty easy to do this. You definitely want to use a piston ring tool to get those rings on there without warping them or bending them. And then what we'll do is add some assembly lube as we go along, and I'll show that as we start to get these installed. So what we've got here is one of the clips installed, and we'll get everything lubricated in here, and then once this is on the bike, we'll slide the wrist pin back through and we'll install the second clip. So that's where we are now. We'll head back over to the bike and start to get these installed. All right, so we are ready to get these pistons installed, and we're going to start here with the front cylinder. So I am just going to get some of this out of the way. And take our rubber band off here. I'm actually going to leave that in place. Okay, so first thing we need to do here is go ahead and just make sure we get everything lubed up with some assembly lube properly, and then we'll go ahead and start with getting this installed. Okay. And lastly, get the wrist pin itself here. Okay. All right. Now, making sure to pay attention to the orientation and also markings. So this is our front piston, marks towards forward, and the bigger indent here for the valves is going to be the intake, so that'll point towards the middle of the bike. So we'll come through here and slide that in. All right, So obviously I didn't mention, but it's pretty clear here. You want to make sure that you've got something covering your cylinder head studs. It'll be pretty easy to let this piston knock against those and mar up the piston itself or the rings. So pretty easy precaution just to do that. Okay, so from this point, we're going to go ahead and get the clip installed on the wrist pin here. So this particular type is the kind of spring type, sort of like a key ring. Others are a little C-clip, and there's a tool you can use to install those. Hopefully this will go pretty easily, and obviously we just want to make sure that got the rags here covering up the openings in the top of the motor so that if this thing does fall, it doesn't wind up dropping into the motor. All right, so let's get this installed. Okay. All right, so that was pretty simple, right? So just get it started and then sort of work it around with a small flat blade screwdriver until it pops into place. So now we've got it locked in on both sides. Wrist pin moves nicely in there, and we're good to go. We did, I'll point out, set up the ring gaps according to the instructions, and we'll double check to make sure nothing has moved before we go ahead and lock those in place and get the cylinders put on. So for now though, I'm just going to go ahead and repeat this same procedure on the rear piston. So here we go. Okay, that one's good. We'll just double check this front one as well. Okay. All right. So now our pistons are on, and we're ready to probably move to the next step, which is to do a little bit more lubrication, get our O-rings in place, and then we'll move on to getting these cylinders dropped on. So just get reset. We'll get right back to it. All right. So we've got our piston ring compression tool installed here, and this is going to help us keep those rings pushed in while we slide the cylinder on. A couple of other things worth noting here. You've got O-rings to put on the oil passageways, and then also the O-ring on the base of the cylinder itself. So we've got those in place. We can actually go ahead and remove the protective tubes now that the ring compressor is installed. And we'll go ahead and get this started, and then we will slide the tool out of the way, get the rag out of there, and get it fully seated. All right, so as you do this, you just want to make sure to do it nice and slowly and carefully, not wanting to damage any surfaces, hit anything, you know, this is all critical stuff here, so just want to make sure everything goes on nicely. All right. So that is one installed, and we'll go ahead and get prepped, and we'll repeat the procedure on the rear. All right, so we had a little camera technical difficulties while I was shooting the installation of the rear cylinder, but reality is it's exactly the same as the front, so hopefully that wasn't a big miss for everyone. But where we are now is we've got both cylinders on, and we're ready to go ahead and start getting the heads on. So I've got a head gasket just sort of laying in place here. We're going to start with the front. Pretty easy, right? So gasket goes on, head goes on, and then following the torque sequence for the head bolts and making sure to follow that procedure exactly. What we've got here, these look so good. So these are our redone heads back from T-Man. You can see those valves look awesome. We've got new springs up in the top. A little hard to see, not so much focusing there. Our intake ports have been opened up to match the intake runners on the horsepower ring throttle body. And everything inside just looks so good. I know it's gonna be really hard to see with the camera, but really, really beautiful. So we're gonna go ahead and get these on here. There we go. Just a little effort to get the studs in the cylinders to line up with the heads there, but it's on. Everything's where it's supposed to be. So what we're going to do is get our bolts out here, and we're going to start by just hand tightening everything. And we're going to follow the torque sequence, like I said. It's in the service manual, pretty easy to look up if you don't have it. We've got some assembly lube on the threads, and then also on the faces of the bottoms of these bolts, so that everything will get a really good torque reading, and we won't have any issues there. So here we go. All right, so we've got them all hand tight, so that's in place. So we're gonna go ahead with our first torque sequence, which is gonna be 12 foot-pounds.
So after 12, we're going to go up to 17 and follow it all the way back around again. All right. Then after 17, we are going to go back and loosen all the bolts and then redo that whole same procedure. So back start with number 1. All right. Now, our final torque for these bolts is going to be a quarter turn from the 17 foot-pounds. So we'll just go back and give each bolt one more quarter turn, and we'll be all set. Okay. And so that'll do it for the front head. And we'll go ahead and move on to the rear. All right, so here we are, and we've got our rear cylinder back in place as well. So just kind of a quick review. Today we got new pistons in, cylinders on, and our cylinder heads are now in place as well, and final torque down. The next couple steps before we move down to the cam chest is obviously we've got to get our rocker boxes back on, and we've got our new throttle body from Horsepower Inc. to go on as well. We're going to stop here for today. We'll pick up tomorrow, and we'll keep going with this top end. But for now, make sure to like and subscribe to keep following along with our builds. And as always, please reach out if you have any questions or we can help you with anything at all. Thanks.